And I am so excited that Senator Casey Murdock is here to visit with us this evening. And this is your opportunity to be able to express your views on the topics that are coming up for the legislature. And so I encourage you to ask those questions. Also, I think later, Dr. Carl Newton, our state representative, will be here. And so if you have questions for him, you might jot them down, and we expect him shortly. So,
he said he was going to be about 5 to 10 minutes late.
So there you go.
Better go over 10.
It's, you know, when I first ran, I was out campaigning. I was in the House, and they talked about how Gus Blackwell was late all the time, and Senator Marlette was late all the time. I'm like, yeah, why are you late? Why are you late? Then I got elected. Yeah, it's you get held up. I mean, it takes me 30 minutes to get out of the Capitol once I leave my office, because you get stopped and, hey, I want to talk to you about this. And it's the same way in district. You know, the one plus positive thing about getting elected is I don't have to go to Walmart anymore. We'll pull up in front of Walmart, and my wife says, you stay in the pickup. Because we'll wind up staying in there for 3 hours.
Boy, you got a lot of nerve.
Oh, I love it. Except one day we pulled up at the grocery store in Boise City, and I said, I probably better stay in the pickup. And she said, no, get your butt out. You're going shopping with me, because nobody in here is going to talk to you about politics. But no, there's a, you know, it's just, it's the way it is. And you know, I run up and down the road pretty fast. And it's because I'm always late, and it's, you wind up talking to someone at a meeting a little longer than you expect to. Well, you got another meeting to get to, and I was at May. I pulled in there, and a lady goes, man, you need to slow down. You're making these people mad, but you're passive. And I said, okay, I've got to do a cost analysis. I can make the 5 people I pass on the road mad because I blew by them, or I make the 30 people mad because I'm 15 minutes late. You know, it's that cost analysis. The other thing I was thinking about, you know, before I was elected, when I was just ranching in Felt, I remember people saying, you know, that's a state employee. They're driving 45 miles an hour. Make sure they're back at the county shop right at quitting time. They're just putting around. Well, when you see me going up and down the road, I'm working for you. And if you have an employee, you want them hustling. And whenever I'm running up and down the road, I'm going to a meeting on your behalf. I'm working for you. And I think you want me hustling if I'm out there. But with that, let's go in. You gotta love technology. I have all my talking points on my phone. And
What would happen if that thing goes?
this?
Yeah.
Then I have to wing it, and when I start winging it, my EA gets nervous. I'll go to a meeting, and she goes, you got your talking points? I said, oh, I'm just going to wing it, and she goes, makes her nervous. So, I'm going to wait on the kind of this till Carl gets here, because we're going to kind of work on it together. I will talk about some of the legislation that I'm going to look at this year. I'm also getting old and blind. I got to blow it up. A few months ago, the district attorney in Guyman had called me, and the ballot initiative that we ran a few years ago, 780 and 781, that in my mind basically legalized all drugs. I don't know if you drink beer.
No.
But if you did drink beer and you got pulled over and you had an open container of beer in your pickup, you're going to get in more trouble than if you get caught with an ounce of cocaine.
Mm.
That's what 780 did. Something else that it did is it took away the drug-free zones for our schools. And the DA called me, it was midsummer, and I went and visited with him, and they had an issue at Guymon Public Schools. Several third graders, one of them had taken those little gummy bears that had THC and went to school and handed them out. Well, they went home, hired a kite, and the parents took one of them to the doctor and goes, well, he's high on THC. Well, you can imagine that parent wasn't very happy. And so I'm going to try to reinstate the 1,000-foot drug-free zone around our schools. One big deal that I pushed last year is putting a cap on how much land the wildlife department can buy. And where this came from, Carl, do you want to come up here?
Sure.
I just said enjoy sitting back in the back row.
No, you got to be up here. One of the reasons that I'm fundamentally opposed to government owning land, first, I don't believe America was made great by the government owning land. It was the individuals, the entrepreneurs. But the county that I live in, Cimarron County, 20% of the county the state owns. I have seen it growing up. I've seen it being on the school board. When you take 20% of the county's area off the tax rolls, no one's living on that. Their kids that's not living on it is not going to our schools. They're not going to the grocery store buying their groceries. It affects our economy. And I'm not reducing what they have. Right now, the Wildlife Department owns 350,000 acres. They lease up another 1.2 million. So the Wildlife Department controls 1.5 million acres in the state of Oklahoma. And my question to them last year was, how much do you need? And, I'll work with them. If they'll come say, this is, to do our mission, this is what we need, I'm going to be happy with that. Right now, the people of wildlife, now I have some issues with some of them because they kind of got, in my opinion, a little big for the britches. I think Carl and I, in my philosophy of government, Carl and I are elected to go down and do the will of the people, the will of the voters. But when the Wildlife Department kept pushing back on the will of the voters and said, no, you can't tell us what to do, we're an unappropriated agency and we can do whatever we want to do. Well, no, they are still a government agency and there should be oversight to the voters, and that oversight is with Carl and I. With that being said, the commissioners of wildlife is appointed by the governor, and they're kind of the ruling body. I trust those commissioners. I think they're good guys. I think they're going to do things right. What worries me is what happens in 20 years from now. What kind of commissioners are we going to have 20 years from now, or 50 years from now, or 100 years from now? And once they buy a piece of property, that is theirs forever. They're never selling it. And it's out of the public's hands, the individual's hands. And during the drought that we were in, I took cows up to New Mexico to it's called the Valles Caldera National Preserve. It was a private ranch. The government bought it in 2001. And Congress allocated the money to set this ranch up as a working cattle ranch. They were supposed to take cattle in. Well, when Obama got elected, he put a whole new board. And I know when I had cattle up there was protesters protesting cattle being on this ranch. When I moved them off, they lined the road cheering me moving the cattle off. Obama got his board on there. There's no more cattle allowed up there unless you are a member of the tribe Indian tribe that is from that area. So I want to put a cap on what the state can own. It scares me with the government buying up too much property and taking it out of individuals' hands. Because when they buy a piece of property, whether it's in Woods County, Woodward County, Major County, any of my counties in my district, it's gone forever. Your kids will never have a chance to buy it. Your grandkids will never have a chance to buy it. It's just gone. And just between wildlife and the Commission of School Land, it's about 2.5 million acres that they own in the state. That doesn't count the parks, that doesn't count the others. That's just those two, 2.5 million acres that I think should be in individuals' hands. So that's one thing.
Why are they buying? What is the justification?
So when I decided I was going to run legislation, the Wildlife Department got a new director, and he came in, introduced himself in my office. He didn't know whose office he was in, because he walked in and he said to me, I feel like it's the mission of wildlife to buy up as much land as we possibly can buy. And its access is to grant hunters access so they can go hunt and do whatever they want to do. But what's enough? And I don't know, to me, I don't think, rural Oklahoma is struggling. We're losing population. We're trying to get stuff going all the time, folks. Get something sparked, some industry, something to bring jobs back. And I don't think we'll do that with the government owning property. But it's to be blatantly honest, I think it's so that people in Oklahoma City and Tulsa have a place to go hunt.
Wanting people to hunt, or are they trying to buy it to protect, for wildlife to have a place to not be hunted?
No, it's hunting.
It's open to hunting.
It's open to, they're buying it to hunt. I'm a capitalist. If there's a need, if there's a demand, Joe Blow rancher, Joe Blow landowner can say, hey, I'm going to lease this out and let people come in and they'll start a business. And Joe Blow rancher landowner is in town buying fencing equipment, fencing supplies, hiring somebody to take care of it, sparking the economy. The state of Oklahoma doesn't do that. Because I'm not going to depend on the state of Oklahoma to provide jobs. I want the individual to provide jobs, to start things.
Well, the lease on the land to hunt is a whole lot cheaper than it is to hunt on the rancher's land too.
It's depends on where you go.
They don't have to pay a lease, are they?
What?
If it's state land, they probably not paying on it.
They don't have to pay a lease on a state land, no, they don't.
No, they don't. Another bill I'm filing it. It probably won't be my bill, but it's very important. I'm running a bill to put a cap on insulin, where it's $100 a month. I've copied what Colorado is doing, but the prescription drug cost is just out of this world. And if you're diabetic, it is life or death. And I think we need to have a cap on it. So that is legislation that I'm going to run. The chairman of our health committee is also running a bill. Politics, it's probably going to be his bill that gets across the finish line, but I'm still going to file that legislation. One more thing, and I guess this is where you can step in, because this is kind of the state in general. We're going to have about $300 million over our needs this year. Now, Carl and I was talking about it. He said, well, you know, it's not a whole lot. And I said, well, that's true. For Carl and I, $300 million, that's a heck of a lot of money. For the state's budget, it's not so much. But it's still better than my first year that I got elected. That was $611 million hole in the budget. It's a heck of a lot better than Carl's first year, was what, 1.3?
Yeah.
1.3 billion. So we are turning around.
But right now, though, they say it's pretty nip and tuck because the amount of money coming in now. I think this last month was the first time it went under our needs, if I remember right. We've been staying just above our needs on the amount of tax revenue coming in. And this last month, it fell just a little bit short. So it's the first time it's fallen short since the tax increase a few years ago. And you're going to hear a lot of, can I go into the oil wells? Is that right?
Yeah, that's what was next on my deal. So
okay. If you guys don't know, the rig count's down. Okay, rig count's about half of what it was. But you got to think about this. A rig now can drill for 2 miles, and they couldn't 2 years ago. It's been 2 years.
It's been
2 years ago.
They could only go a mile.
So they can. One rig can do twice as much work as what a rig could do 2 years ago, because we expanded their long laterals to 2 miles.
So the rig counts are down, but our production is up. Oil production's up in the state, the rig counts are down. And I think the long laterals have a lot to do with that.
So that's something we passed 2 years ago. So, you know, that has a factor. And so if anybody says, well, we tax the oils and they're pulling out, they're not pulling out. Like you said, the production is up compared to what it was.
The thing that worries me, and I'm debating with myself on that vote, I voted to extend the long laterals. You know, in hindsight's always 20/20. What worries me when you look at Northwest Oklahoma, we're service companies. We've got lots of service companies here, and it worries me that just through technology, what's going to happen to our service companies if we've got half as many rigs, half as many employees, and that concerns me.
We're already consolidating now.
Yeah, it's concerning, and yeah, your big guys like the long laterals, but how many jobs is that going to cost us? And you know, and like I said, I'm debating with myself, was that a good decision or not? It was good for the big guys, but what about our small communities? Was it actually good for them?
A lot of the independents can't do a long lateral. They can't.
No.
A lot
What is it?
A lot of them are still vertical drilling, aren't they? Most of the
They are. The small guys are vertical guys.
that are located in Oklahoma are still vertical drilling. What? Oh, you want me to talk? What else? Okay. What else do you want to talk about? Okay. Let's talk about initiative petitions. You got 2 initiative petitions that are coming up on the ballot. Okay. Number 1 is the Medicare expansion. And I sat on the Medicare task force this last summer, and we looked at it, and then we had some plans, and then all of a sudden they got vetoed at the last minute. So we're still sitting on looking at that. Well, Medicare expansion, they're wanting to expand it to up to 25% of the poverty level. Those that are up in that area. The initiative petition would give anybody in that area. Now, I'm going to go back up a little bit. This initiative petition would change it in the Constitution. It would require the state of Oklahoma to meet the needs of those in that 25% within above poverty level to provide them with medical care. Okay? That's the expansion of Medicare. No restrictions. It's in the Constitution that they would get that. Right now, the federal government says they're going to promise to take care of that expansion, 90% of it. They're going to take care of it. But if they would ever back off, guess who's going to take care of it?
Well, this is the other thing. With all of our ballot initiatives, that puts it in our Constitution. That's set, pretty much set in stone. The only way you change it is go back with another ballot initiative. So it kind of ties our hands as legislators as far as tweaking it. If we run something to expand Medicaid and it's just legislation, we can go in there and tweak it, we can amend it, we can kind of adjust it as we go forward. If it's in our Constitution, we can't do that without bringing it back to another vote of the people. And the one number I heard, to put a ballot initiative out, you need to have $1 million. That's just a start. To run a ballot initiative, you need $1 million. It really ties our hands if it goes into the Constitution, if we need to tweak it later on. We can't amend it. I mean, that is what it is.
What we were looking at, and as far as the task force and everything, how many of you guys have insurance? You have insurance, right? Most of you, right? You have a copay, right? You have a deductible, right? Now, I'm sensitive to those that are in that age, I mean that finance group that can't afford a lot. But if we just had it, you would have a copay, but I'm saying $1 or $2. You know, have some skin in the game. You know, maybe it's $10. But to have some skin in the game when you're doing that. And if you have a copay, if you go to the emergency room, which that's what a lot of them are doing now, is to go in the emergency room, spending the money there, that the copay would be higher at the emergency room than it would be if you're going to just go to your general practitioner during regular office hours. So it would funnel them to be more wise about their spending on the medicine and going to the
They
appropriate
already
pay.
have a copay. On the DH, on the Sooner Care, if they're over
That's
the
Sooner
20,
Care, yeah.
it's,
But that's,
there is a copay.
if you're over 21, yours
You
not.
have a copay.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's not right now, if you're in the Medicaid, that you don't have to pay more to go to the emergency room than if you go to the doctor's office.
Oh, okay.
You see what I mean? So, and so I want to put some of that, if this expansion is, there is none of that in there. And I'd like to make sure that we're helping those that are working, and not just those that are just dependent on it and sitting back and being dependent on it. I'd like to see those that are give them a break, that are trying to
Is
make
there
it.
something that they have for the emergency room that are just, that keep going, I mean, that wait, they could have gone during regular hours, but they wait to go to the emergency room? Isn't there something that they can send them to urgent care or? So
Well, they can go to the
it's
urgent care.
costly to the emergency room?
Not that I'm aware of. I think they can go wherever they want to, whenever.
I was under the opinion that they had, if they weren't in dire straits, emergency, that they're ones that come out there to go through the ER, and it's not a life or death. I thought that
They
there
can
was-
go, a lot of them will go to the emergency room for a cold or something like that too.
But I thought there was something that they were making it so that it wasn't.
Yeah, so
As handy.
we need to make it.
Well, I mean, I thought that there
Yeah.
was something that.
Not
Not now.
Not at the present time.
Okay.
So that's some of the things we would like to do, was going to expand it on our side. In fact, I think you may see a bill. I know I've been talking to the chairman of the medical committee, and we are going to go ahead and put out a bill regarding this, even though there's the initiative petition, because we want to make sure the people have a choice rather than just saying this is it. And because people right now, I mean, it's a good, sounds good, you know, you're going to help those that can't help themselves, but you also are tying everybody, future generations, to this, to be paying for this, no matter what happens with the federal government. So that's one of our concerns there. One of the other ballot initiatives that I'd like to mention is the redistricting right now. And in after the census, it'll be our 2022 election, won't it?
Yes, it will
Yeah,
affect
it'll be our
2022.
It'll be
They'll
affect the
redo it.
2022 election. because we go off the census from 2020, okay? So they have the census and get that all in, but they're doing an issue petition. This is just education. I'm not for or against anything. I just want you to know, okay? The initiative petition is saying that your constituents, my constituents as a state representative, have to be as much equal as we can, and Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, and then they also have to be have a cross section of all minorities. And no offense, there's not a lot of minorities in Northwest Oklahoma, right? And then also we have to be sensitive to sexual orientation. Have to consider that and try to bring that into it. And so they're putting it in the disguise that the legislatures do it and get it. What's the term? They make it fit their voting bases, and some of them do. It has been in the past to some degree, but when you bring in all these other factors, it's going to be funny. I mean, for my district, I'd have to have a skinny little piece of pie that would go all the way down to Oklahoma City and back up here to get all those diversities that they're wanting to fit my, which I would, you know, versus what I've got now, which is more of the rural area. And
well,
so,
and
gerrymandering. That's
gerrymandering.
That's
but
the word I was looking for.
I guess, and yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm against this deal, and the first deal, and to give you some history on this ballot initiative, President Obama and Eric Holder, AG Eric Holder, are the ones that started this. And if you remember, when Obama was in office, I don't remember what year, whether it was 10, I believe it was 10. Across the United States, they were losing state houses. State houses was turning Republican. Well, the Senate and the House, state Senate and the state House are the ones that draw the lines for the districts. They draw the state, well, Carl's and my district, that's determined by the House and the Senate. State House and state Senate. They also determine congressional lines, and they were concerned about who was drawing the lines, because everything on the statewide was shifting to Republican control. Very interesting fact, they're only pushing these ballot initiatives in states that are controlled by Republicans. They're leaving the states that are controlled by Democrats alone, so that the Democrat states can still draw their lines. It's just the Republican-controlled states that they're pushing these ballot initiatives in. This initiative is very, very bad for rural Oklahoma. This gives more power to Tulsa and Oklahoma City, is what it's ultimately going to do. And we, in my opinion, living in rural Oklahoma, we are already behind the eight ball. We don't need another strike against us, and that's, in my opinion, that's what this is going to do. Go ahead, sorry.
No, that's fine. That's great. That adds to it. I mean, right now in Northwest Oklahoma, we don't have much representation as far as number of legislators versus, I mean, my square district is 3,572 square miles. Okay, I have fellow representatives that have 2 square miles, 6 square miles in their district, and so if they try to equalize that out, they're going to try to pull me to get more metros in our area, which, so it's kind of a
well, and that's every time we redistrict, just as we are right now by our Constitution, and Carl has to represent 38,000 people.
Yep.
I have to represent 80,000 people, just per our Constitution. The way it is right now, we are already losing a rural legislature every time we redistrict, because rural Oklahoma, the population is declining.
We lost one last session.
Lost one last session. And we have to reach into these urban areas to grab that population. And every time we do that, we are at risk of losing a rural legislature. We have one House district that runs basically from Enid down to Yukon.
North of Enid. A little north of Enid.
A little bit north of Enid that runs to Yukon. It's a narrow strip down through there. And we had a good wheat farmer as a representative 2 years ago. This year we have someone from Yukon that's the representative. We're at risk at losing, just as it is right now. And then we do this ballot initiative, it's going to get worse.
Those are the two major ballot issues. Any questions on those? Yes, sir.
On this gerrymandering deal, are they going to, if that passes, are they going to be able to make every district include part of either Tulsa or Oklahoma City to where the cities can control every?
They wouldn't try to say Oklahoma City and Tulsa, but they're going to try to get equal numbers of Democrats, Republicans. I mean, in my district, Fairview, Oklahoma is the reddest community in the reddest county in the reddest state in the United States. I mean, Fairview, Oklahoma, they have 72% Republican. So with that high number of Republicans, I'm going to have to try to get a lot more Democrats. Well, where are you going to find a lot more Democrats up in this area?
How can you make them equal when there's not an equal number of them in the state?
Well, and so when you talk about representation, Carl and I represent an area of the state that we are different. Our mindset up here is different than it is in southeast Oklahoma. And we take you guys' morals, beliefs to the Capitol. That's what we vote on. That's what we run legislation on, is your morals and your beliefs. We're already diversified, just in saying that. But as far as how they're going to cut it up, this is the thing that worries me, is it's going to set up a non-political board made up of people that's not voted on, that's appointed to this board to draw the lines. And my short time at the Capitol, how many board members on state agencies come from Northwest Oklahoma? And how many come from Eastern Oklahoma? I don't think we will be truly represented on that board of who we are as a community and who we are as a person, people.
I mean, I couldn't be represented for some of the districts in the state of Oklahoma.
Oh, I know I couldn't.
Yeah.
But the sale district would kick me out really fast.
So.
So theoretically, they could do exactly like the one you're talking about, where they're running from north of Enid down to Yukon, to where the metro area.
It very well could look like a pinwheel coming out of Oklahoma City and just.
Do you think they'd have to be, make sense to be contiguous? But I don't know how they could do that and not have some that would not be contiguous.
Right. That's why I don't understand it either, but that's one of the dilemmas. We're just trying to let you know what's out there. And I know the Woodward Republicans came out against it last month and said, do not sign this petition because it's not the right thing. And last time that the redistricting was done would have been 2010, correct? And they did it very openly and with people input from the constituency and let them know it went off that basis there. So that was done pretty openly. So it will be done openly. In fact, I'm hoping to push on that board because actually for Northwest Oklahoma, to have a representative in Northwest Oklahoma, the one south of me is off. The only one that's going to still be here is Paskowski.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything's going to shift to the east. So what I see, and the numbers I heard, and if we just leave it alone, the numbers I've heard that me in my Senate district is I'm 8,000 people short of my 80,000. Why I want a say in where we draw the lines is I want to keep this seat as rural as we can possibly keep it. I'd heard rumors that this district or the Senate district could possibly go down and take in part of Clinton. And as we do that, exactly, what happens when we have a senator from Clinton That's what I'm worried about. I think this is a rural part of Oklahoma, and our representation should be a rural legislature. And Carl's would probably have to move into Enid, but everything would shift east. And I'm sorry, Western Oklahoma people think a little bit different than Eastern Oklahoma people. And that's your voice at the Capitol. The other thing I want to talk about is and it ties into this, is our census. It is very, very important that you fill out the census. You fill it out, get your friends, your neighbors, your family, because not only on redistricting, federal funding is tied to this redistricting, or I'm sorry, to the census. I don't know of any federal dollars that comes out in whatever program they have if in their formula the census numbers is not in that formula on how they send money out. Whether it's hospitals, whether it's wildfire aid, they look at census numbers. And so it's important that we fill this out. I can't remember what the numbers were for Woods County. I do remember what Texas and Cimarron County was because it was so astronomical big. It was only about 65% of the people that they estimated filled it out. What that tells me is we're leaving 35% of the federal funding on the table. We're not getting that. And I know our hospitals need it. I don't know how much road funding is tied to it, but it's tied to it. Everything I've seen, it's tied to it. So your county roads and bridges, that money's tied to it. The money, federal money that comes into the county is tied to it. So it's important that we fill out the census. I understand in 2010, I probably was one of those ones that didn't fill it out. Because I didn't think the government should, it's none of their business how many toilets I have in my house. It's none of their business what I'm doing.
I worked for the census when they did it back in, I think, 2000, just part-time, just to help them get it all done. And at that time, and I don't know how much has changed, but at that time, it got filled out. But for it to be correct, really the person that lives in that house should be filling it out, because if they cannot catch anybody, they'll go to the neighbor, they'll go to somebody down the street, they'll go to anybody they can find, and it'll get filled out. Well, it won't be correct. You need to be doing it and get it sent in so that it's correct. And yeah, I'm like you, it's not really any of their business. But then again, somebody's going to fill it out. Would you rather it be right or...
That, and I guess I didn't, until I got elected and saw the funding, I didn't realize how important it was for us out here. And I hate the government. They converted me on how important this is.
Just a couple of bills I'm going to be running this year. One I'm picking up from last year. When you have a bill, I had a bill that passed the House, and it passed the Senate with the title off. Well, a title off is like a blank in a gun. It does nothing. It makes noise, but it does nothing. And so, title off on a cemetery bill. Right now in a cemetery, if you bought a plot 100 years ago, and in fact that's what happened. We've got a lot of these smaller cemeteries that somebody had a kid die 80, 100 years ago, and they buried him there, and they said, well, we need to buy 3 or 4 lots so we can be buried by them. And then they moved on and went to Colorado or someplace like that, and they leave 3 or 4 spaces there that nobody could use. And so my bill is that after a lot, the person has had no contact with the cemetery for at least 75 years, that the cemetery could re-allot that. Now, if the person came back later they would give them a comparable lot if that lot had been sold and was being used. But it got held up on the Senate. Some of the senators didn't understand what we was doing. It
Happens a lot.
People live over 75 years. So if I live over about 75 years, I'm going to lose my lot. No, it's if you have not had any contact. And the same, we were using the same contact that they would on all sorts of legal matters. 3 letters out, 3 notices in the newspaper, letters to the last known address, all those things. And so I'm going to add that if they would happen to come back after that, that they would be given comparable value to reimburse comparable value to the property that was taken back by the cemetery if they didn't like the adjoining lot or whatever plot, they didn't want the other plot. Because I'm telling you, I think 95% of them will never come back. I mean, they're gone. They're gone from that area.
Well, you think about during the Dust Bowl when we had the mass exodus to California. How many of those people are coming back? I mean, they just moved out.
And so you've got cemeteries that are landlocked, can't expand because it's going to cost a lot more money, and there's no place to go. And so I'm just trying to make them be able to be better stewards of the land that they're having. Question back there?
So would this just be original owners, or would it pass on, say, to heirs?
It could go on to their heirs if they wanted to. Yeah, it still could. But I'm just saying, a family that has made no contact with the cemetery for 75 years. Like if you had checked in with the cemetery 50 years ago, it would move it out 25 more years.
And you say comparable value, would that be like when they bought it, or
No.
comparable value now? Current value. Okay.
Yeah, current value. Yes, sir.
I can tell you, we could discuss that out of cemetery board meetings and are not really in favor of it. Because there's an awful lot of people that buy lots that maybe are 8 plots in a lot, and they'll use 2 of them, but it's on purpose because they don't want anybody buried beside them.
All they gotta do is make contact with the cemetery, and
They're dead.
Yeah, they're dead.
They
We had
can't do that.
That was one of the arguments that was brought up in the Senate, because I know myself, I don't want anybody around me. I may buy.
Who wants to be around you?
Exactly. Nobody wants to be around me.
Not only, but they're doing that so they can control.
But if that was noted at the time they got the lots, it could be noted
I
on.
can think of several people out here.
But I mean,
that have done that.
they have the, yeah.
Probably have kids that
Well,
could possibly.
We can add that on.
And that's the thing, we could amend it. If you're buried there and you have,
Requested nobody be buried
Even
in
if-
that adjoining area, then that would be we would honor that.
And another question that has come up on that is this going to force all cemeteries to have to abide by that? Or is like, if out the cemetery says, no, we're not going to go for that, can they say no?
I think they should be able to.
They should be able to
I mean,
say,
because
"You decide what you wanna
it's
do."
basically your land.
You're the one that would have to foreclose on it anyway. It's not foreclosure, but for using a term we're used to. The cemetery would have to be the one to decide that land can be used for somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
So it'd be up to your board.
It would not be the state government, it would be the cemetery board that would decide that.
Well, you're running the same thing there, like you're talking about, you don't know who the commissioners are going to be down the line.
Right.
You don't know who your city managers may be, who your board members may be, or things like that.
Well, and this is coming from being at the Capitol and with term limits, and one of the things I don't like about term limits is we lose institutional knowledge. And it's very good to write things down. What I would do, if this passed, what I would do as a board member is somewhere in there write this down, say, this is what we have decided and this is why. This is to future board members, to let them know why those decisions were made.
But this came from some of my rural cemeteries around here that wanted it. So that's why I brought it to them. You see what I mean?
Well, I can see that in some of the rural cemeteries because they're pretty sparsely populated.
Well,
to say.
it goes back to what I was saying, rural Oklahoma is, no pun intended, but look, we're dying. And it's not that we're dying being put in cemeteries, but moving off, we're losing population. I'm trying to think of, it's everywhere I drive, but it's from, basically from Diamond to Woodward. About every 5 miles, there's a sign that says there's a cemetery. There's a cemetery. And where I live, from Felt West, when I was a kid, there's 15 people out there farming that country. Today, there's 4. Where'd those people go? And why they were there? Well, yes and no, but why they were there? Did they go and buy a plot and then they moved off? But the ultimate decision would go back to the board on what they wanted to sell.
And maybe the board will later on decide that they need to do that. It'll be the board's decision then.
But I'm just thinking we could word it.
But you still get back to the people. I mean, this board comes and says, "Oh, we don't care. We didn't even know this person. They may have owned half the county, and they bought the whole plot so they could be in the center of it, and nobody around them." Well, 75 or 100 years down the line, those people may say, "Oh, we don't care. We're going to sell everything around it."
So maybe language in the bill could protect
I think we
bought
could
those plots from future board decisions.
just we could work on the language.
We can work on that. I mean, that's why it wasn't going to pass, and so that's why I brought it to.
Well, your argument right there is it was discussed on the Senate floor about what if you didn't want anybody buried around you.
But you got those books where they bought that. The cemeteries have the books and they show who bought what, and if that was noted there, then it's in your book and it's there forever.
What have they noted it? Have you seen notes like that in?
I haven't seen any of the ones we were looking at.
I'm just curious if it was noted.
Now, see, I'd be a person that would do that. I don't want anybody around me.
That's probably going to be written in my eulogy.
There you go.
We could put it in there that if they noted that they didn't want anybody in adjoining lots, then that would be on it.
I mean, lots like that that nobody ever are even in. It's just plot owners that have no family in the cemetery, so 0.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do with those? They just stay like.
Just stay.
They stay empty.
You're saying, if I had done this and my parents done this, they bought 2 extra lots for me and my sister. I bought 4 more lots for me and my wife and 4 others. To me, I got title to that, and they're going to have to come find me. Or somebody.
Well, that's what the burden is on the cemetery to come and find you by your last known address, putting notices in newspapers and stuff like that.
So in that scenario,
my last known address
is in the cemetery.
Yeah. But your family,
well, that's
your relatives,
your heirs and stuff like that.
Your family.
Your family heirs.
That can be harder to do than what you're visualizing. Because every once in a while, we'll get somebody in here and you're talking about it having been the Dust Bowl and moved out, and they have. And nobody's ever heard anything of them ever since then. And all at once they have died, and they come back here to want to be buried, and they want to bring them back here to be buried. For one reason, they've got a plot here. And in California, it's going to cost them a fortune to get buried. So they'll come back here and use a plot that the family owns or that they own, that maybe their grandma bought.
But if you buy a plot, here's my thing, if you buy the plot now and that bill's in place, you're going to know to tell whoever. Whereas if right now we don't have anything in place, so no one knows to call or no one knows to contact the cemetery. So if we had the bill in place, we could be educated about it. You know what I mean? That's what my thing is.
Yeah. My thing is that how local cemeteries are going to be documenting those lot owners' wishes. I've worked for Alba Monument for the last 5 years, and cemetery records are not always that great, especially when record keeping changes hands. different things get switched around and people document things differently. So how does that stay streamlined so that this bill could be followed and people can have those records?
Based on the cemetery's documentation. It's based on their decision, their documentation. I mean, it's not the state government telling them what they can do, or not just allowing them to do this if they so decide.
Well, we're talking about
But
they can put it.
Protecting the lot owners.
So,
Not just allowing I understand that you're allowing the cemetery to have the ability to re-allot, and I think that's a great idea, because again, there is a lot of wasted space, but how do you protect the lot owners at the same time? Because that has been purchased and paid for.
If they would come back after a certain amount of time, they would be given a comparable lot to that space, okay? If somebody had been buried there, if there wasn't anybody buried there, they would still be able to use that. If somebody was buried there, they would be given comparable space, or they would be given money at the value that plot would be to them, and they could relocate.
so they're not going to be,
I don't really think anybody's going to be actively going out there and looking for this. Pretty much it's kind of the thing that if somebody wants to be buried in a small cemetery and there's a spot and it's close to their family, but nobody knows anything about it, you just go back in the books and see. And if it's been over your 75 years, and then you go through the process of taking another year's worth of time of trying to find them and publish it and all of that.
so what if, and I'm spitballing here, what if, I mean, with technology today, you Google search someone and you see that they had died in Anaheim, California, and you find his obituary goes, well, he's buried in Anaheim. Well, that should release that, unless it's in his will that he willed that to somebody, but that should release that. You found he's already buried at another cemetery. It should release it. I mean, with that.
But it still
But you
goes back
gotta
to
find
theirs.
the heirs.
It
Yeah.
still goes to the heirs.
Okay.
But
Because it's just
if
a
you-
real estate. It's a
if
real
you
estate
could-
deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could find the person and where they were, you could maybe track down the heirs to find out. Do you want to sell this? Do you want to donate it back to the cemetery? You know, that kind of thing.
Well, that happens out here all the time.
Just donate it back.
Individuals will look up a certain lot or plots and buy them. Some of those people out here that may have 8 lots that they buy up. And then when they get ready to die, then they decide which one they want to use.
Have they changed the contracts now, that if not used in 75 years for that cemetery? I mean, have we even got existing where you could solve it now is when you sell a plot, that put that
And
language
move
in
it
the
forward.
contract.
Yeah.
Put it in
I'm gonna say, but you're gonna have to start whenever it passes under that. If you're gonna put in that I bought this and I don't want anybody around me, you're not gonna be able to go retroactive because you can't have that. You could go forward with it on contracts or on things.
Do you know how many potential plots this
I mean, would it affect immediately? No, I don't have a number. But it'd be high.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know.
Mostly it's just going to be those little rural, small town, not necessarily Alva, but little rural out in the country.
That used to be a town that's,
Yep.
or a community that's not there.
Thank you for those points. We'll look at that. Okay? That's why we were to the conference. We're looking at it.
Okay.
So, another bill that I'm getting ready to run this year is, we have to give incentives. State gives incentives to big business and all that all the time. What I would like to do for those that do a Schedule F, and that is a true farmer that has true farmer income that's coming out of a new farmer starting up for the first 5 years, would give them a break on their income tax based off their Schedule F, so that we can incentivize people coming back and
What about
starting
a
up.
farmer that this is the first year they made money?
No.
I mean, because then I would fit.
This is new startup farmers. Sorry.
I'm still waiting on that first year I made money.
I know.
That'd be half the community.
If you consider startup, inheriting your startup,
You'd be a new person coming into the farming, you'd be buying land and that kind of stuff.
Or inheriting, I think that.
And inheriting, yes.
Because that's trying to get the kids to come back.
Yeah, we're trying to get the kids to come back,
That's what I was asking.
get more people. Because otherwise we're gonna have a lot of corporate farms around here. You're gonna have corporations coming in and raising farms. And I'd rather have families here than I would corporations. Yes,
Is
ma'am.
this first year or for a specified period of
5 years.
5 years?
5 years. First 5 years. You interested in that one?
I haven't, but I think it'll be the first year you make money.
Is that gonna allow somebody to inherit this and say, I'm a farmer, but he doesn't really do the farming?
No, you'd have to have a schedule after that which shows that you had farm income. I don't think leasing the land, you can use Schedule F, can you?
Yeah, you can.
Can you?
Yeah.
If you're just leasing the land?
Yes.
You're still a farmer.
It'd have to be a percentage. We're working on the final language, it's just in the process.
Because that would actually defeat your purpose.
Yeah.
Of trying to get them back to the
Yeah.
land.
But that's what we're looking at.
No, the leasee, not the leaseor. Am I correct?
Why now?
Yeah.
The leasee, not the leaseor.
Right.
So if I can't, say I own 10,000 acres and I lease it to someone and I'm on a cost share or a percentage of what they bring, you could honestly say I'm a farmer if I'm paying half of the bills.
No, you would not.
Right, so that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
leasee.
Yeah.
You may only own 160, but may lease 1,000 acres
Right.
and be a full-time farmer.
Well, I'm saying on the other,
Right.
the other side, because I know my brothers, I don't, but my brothers lease land, and it's kind of a cost share. They actually farm it, but the landowner pays a percentage of the operating costs, and they get a percentage of the profits. Well, that guy could possibly say, I'm a farmer, I get this tax incentive, when actually he's not, he's a landowner.
But he's a landowner, he's been leasing it for somebody else for other times, right?
Yeah, but would you call him actually a farmer?
He probably wouldn't be new, though. He'd have that land.
Right, okay, that's,
He would be.
yeah, he would
Not
be.
if you just inherited it.
He'd have the
Well,
land,
true,
right?
good point,
20 acres.
good point.
When you drive through Wyoming, it has ranch for sale, and it's like 300 or 200 acre ranch. I mean,
That's what we're trying to make sure it's not a hobby farmer that gets the
That's-
benefit. We're not gonna incentivize hobby farmers and stuff like that. This would be a true startup of somebody that was trying to establish and be in the
that's what I'm
business.
just saying.
The majority of their income come from Schedule F and stuff like
Actually,
that.
you consider my deal as a hobby farm. Because I thought a hobby is something that you actually like to do, but you don't make any money.
Well, there's a lot of them out that way.
My wife thinks it's an expensive hobby.
Go ahead. I'm done.
Okay, I have a bill, I was debating on whether I was going to talk about it because it's just in the inception. I know you would be, that's why I saw you here, I thought I'd bring it up. The issue that we have in this state with protesting ad valorem. It's the word devastating to our local counties, schools, county governments. Would that be the right term, devastating, or just it's a problem? Which is problem or devastating?
Depends on what, if you're a little tiny school or if you're a big school.
But there's an issue with protesting, and I am in the inception of creating a bill to try to fix that problem.
But how do you have to have done in a timely manner? Is that what you're going to do, shorten it?
No, I'm trying to find middle ground with legislation that both sides can agree on that will hopefully deter a lot of the protests.
Okay, for that.
So I'm just, it's in the infancy stage right now, but I am starting that process. That's one thing I learned my first couple of years at the Capitol. It's a battle of inches. It's a slow, tedious process, but I'm starting that.
Right. What about omitted taxes?
Omitted.
Where they don't report and you fine them, there's no penalty for them not.
Yeah, they get a penalty.
There is penalty?
They get a penalty, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I know if we give the schools the money ahead of time, I know Moreland and a lot of the schools in Major County are dealing with this right now, that they were given the money ahead of time, and the protest was not settled.
Well, that should have went to escrow.
Went to a separate account, yeah.
Yeah,
It
they
should
should have, but it didn't. And
Well-
so then the schools got to pay the money back.
We've got that issue in Beaver County, and I visited the county commissioner last week, and they've got to pay, I believe it's DCP back $400,000 because they didn't get that money put in escrow, and they spent it.
And so it's.
But it's supposed to.
For a small school, that can be just as devastating.
Well, and Oregon schools are struggling right now anyway.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to put it in escrow.
Right.
Until there's a decision made. It's where it's supposed to go, so.
We've got one that's 4 years now. It's still four protests with one company for the last 4 years, and it's still not settled, so.
Well, I'm
So they're
hoping
holding
this
4
is.
years worth of taxes?
Yeah, 16, 17, 18, and 19.
So I'm hoping that this, I'm wanting to bring both sides in and see what we can do to fix the problem.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the oil and gas companies, it's across the board. And we need to address that issue. Because at the end, it just hurts mainly our schools. Because what's the breakup here in Woods County? 70% of ad valorem goes to schools. It's different every county. Cimarron County, it's 70. I think Texas County, it's 80%. But it's from 70 to 85% of that ad valorem taxes go straight to the schools. Well, if you've got a school that's struggling and they protest, they're not getting that money, and they don't have the carryover, or they can't wait 4 years for it to get settled. But that's a big issue. It's going to be a mountain of a battle, I believe. But I think we need to start looking at it.
One of the pieces of legislation I'm running this year will be to increase the age of those drug offenders. Right now it's 18 to 21 that can go into the program at Bill Johnson's out here, expand it up to 25. With all these early drug releases and stuff like that, you're really affected your population out here. So if we expand the number of targets that can go, the age of the offenders that can go in there, will help funnel some more of those into a project that brings people out and doesn't send them back. I mean, the recidivization rate is great out of Bill Johnson versus a lot of the correctional facilities. So we're going to expand that, hopefully expand that up to age 25 versus 18 to 21s.
So now, and Carl and I's done town halls the last couple of years, 3 years, and I know this is how I feel. I don't know about Carl, I'm sure it is, because him and I agree on basically everything. But the reason I like town halls is I get a feel of what my constituents want, and it helps me do my job better at the Capitol. I don't have to scratch my head and wonder how to vote on an issue because I've been out talking to you. So now, I can't speak for Carl, but I'm going to shut up and let you guys ask questions, talk about what you guys, issues you're seeing, what you'd like to see fixed. So, any questions or concerns?
Can I just make a comment? I would agree totally with you, because that input like you guys give me, that's where most of my legislation comes from. There's people that are here and stuff like that. So yeah, and like on the cemetery bill, I appreciate those comments. I need to know that, so I can be conscientious about that when it comes to time. So yeah, questions?
Well, I don't know. Anyway, 4 years ago, I was supposed to get a tax refund. And I sent a letter to the tax people down there. And finally, they sent me a credit card made in Texas. And I've been for the last 4 years trying to get that thing where I can get my money.
I've had that's the second one of those I've heard of. I'm gonna work on that one.
Okay, so you know about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the worst part of it is, one time I was talking to him, it was like $260. Next time I talked to them, they sent me another one, it was supposed to be $648. What the heck are them guys sending it to Texas? Can't we fix our own?
Yeah, unless they're just using a company from Texas.
Well, I don't,
But why are we using a company from Texas?
that's what I say.
That's,
But the thing is, I sent 2 letters to the tax commission, got 0 back. Other than they sent me these plastic piece of money that I followed the directions, and then when I wanted to get the money out of it, it's no good. Declined.
really? Is there a time limit? Is there a 90-day time
I
limit
have
on
no idea. When they, I've got other things to take care of besides that. I got a wife that's half invalid, and we spend a third of our time going to the doctors. But it just agitates me. We send it to Texas so they can send us a piece of plastic, and then when you try to use it, they decline it.
Or did you not, sometimes on the back of those, they want you to call a certain number to activate it.
I followed, you're supposed to call and get it activated.
And
Well, I don't know where it got activated. It's probably in China.
But then they would go into the store to use the money, and it would be declined. So that's the second one.
You got this one?
Yep.
So it's, well, I'll survive without it, but it just.
Yeah, but still, if it's your money, you should be able to get access to it and use it, get it back.
But if I don't pay my tax lien, they're hot on my tail.
No, I mean, but I'm saying, if you get money back, you should get your money back. You
Well,
shouldn't-
sure.
Yeah, it shouldn't
And
be.
why couldn't they just, this people in Oklahoma City wrote me a check and sent it to me?
See, they write me a check. I don't get a card. But I usually don't get anything back.
Well, I was
Because you're making
surprised.
so much money farming down.
No, because I don't believe that I want to let the government use my money all year long. So I take the very least deductions out of my paycheck, and then I invest the other. Because I don't want.
That's what I think.
I just shouldn't use my money and let the government use my money every year. And that's how I do it.
But I think what he's telling them is if you was getting a refund from the state, I think the only way you'll get that refund now is as a credit card.
Well,
I never did.
So mine, now that you brought that up, this year I got money back, and they just automatically put it in my account. That's what they
I
do.
think,
They did
I think the
mine.
tax returns give you the option of either putting it in your bank account or receiving that card. So are you doing your own filing your own taxes, or
Yeah,
are
I
you
do my
having
own
them prepared?
taxes because
So, this year, if you, put your bank account number and routing number on it, it should automatically deposit into your bank account.
well, why can't they just send me a check?
I don't think
I
they do
sent
that.
them money every month
Jim
for
Reese
the
called, I
last
left the voice.
82 years.
Reese called, I left the voicemail.
Almost 82. 62.
Carl, did you get some pictures?
Huh?
Did you get some pictures?
Yeah. Me? Did you get a picture of him, Darren?
So that is?
Did you get a picture of him?
I think I did.
Because the last text message I got from my EA, because I always forget pictures, she would make sure they take pictures.
We got you one standing on your head.
All right.
I'll try to separate you and Carl that way. That's it.
No.
Any other questions? I think Carl's going to jump on that one.
Well, this,
Yeah, because if it's your money, you should be able to get it back. I agree with that, totally.
What's the disagreement between the state and the tribes, where is that? Where, I mean,
Did you tell him to ask that?
okay.
Okay.
I don't understand.
You
I
talked about
I see
You never know when your
Yeah.
facial
I mean, I see
stuff
those-
takes several,
I
sometimes.
see stuff
I
on
know,
both sides, and I'm like,
Right.
so why aren't we getting along? Or
Right now, I think-
Some people think we're not.
I'm gonna give you my opinion and take it for what it's worth. I think right now we're in a staring contest. Is where we're at in the negotiations.
Are you on the compact?
On the compact. Yeah, I see you.
And he's
I got an opinion, I want to hear yours, I'm just listening.
So, in my opinion, and I think it's backed up with how things are, there is a reason that Governor Henry has a very, very good job today with the tribes.
I would agree with that totally.
The state of Oklahoma did not fare too well the last time we did the compacts. To give you and we talked earlier about my first year when we were getting the casino in Guymon, and I was digging into it about what the state gets. We get about $120 million a year per the compacts from these casinos. But we've had casinos in the state for 15 years, 20 years now. That, and it's a percentage. This 120 is supposed to be a percentage. It's the same today as it was when they first started, but we've got so many more casinos. Why haven't Oklahoma's portion of that gone up? I would think it should, and it hasn't. Well, in compacts, we can't go and audit. We can't send anybody there and audit and see what's going on. So, back to your taxes. If the IRS can't come audit you, how much are you going to send them? If it's in law, they can't ever come audit. You just got to send in what you think you should. So the governor right now is trying to set that right, and they're in a staring contest on who blinks first. The arguments that I've heard, I believe that, so one of the arguments is that these compacts renew automatically. I don't think that's right. I think they have to be renegotiated every 10 years. The tribes are trying to say that they renew automatically, and that's not right. So that's going to be, it would not surprise me if this doesn't go all the way to the Supreme Court. If I was the governor, right now in this staring contest, I would say, okay, we're just going to open it up, and anybody can put a casino in. I think the Indians the tribes would, they'd start deciding, oh no, we don't want that, because that's added competition to them, and I think they'd come to the table.
So, under these compacts, do the tribes not have exclusivity? Like,
Right now, yes, they do.
They have exclusivity right now.
Right now, they
Okay.
do. They are, I can't go put a casino. It's just on tribal land or tribal trust land.
Or the tribe can go out and buy land in Diamond, which was never tribal land,
And put it
and
into a
make it
trust.
tribal land, and then they can put a casino there.
What, is there wording in this compact that states that it renews automatically?
Not that I've seen. Have you seen it?
That's what I know. That's what I've seen, is this
That's-
renewed automatically. And that's, together, I'm not against the tribes. I think it's fair that they get their benefit, that's part of the compact that was made years and years and years ago with them. But the idea is that there's Together Oklahoma. Have you guys seen these commercials? Together Oklahoma?
They're really well done.
That's the whole idea, is to show what the tribes are doing for the state of Oklahoma, so that they'll draw more people to their point of view and think, oh, we don't want to hurt the tribes. Well, the idea to me, he's bluffing with a hand that Indian tribes know he can't win because they know it will renew at the same rate unless they agree to it.
That's mine. They surely didn't just assume this language. It's written down somewhere in this compact that they renew unless both sides agree.
Both sides agree, it renews at the
renews
same rate that it has this last year.
Yes.
Well, there's a big difference if both sides agree,
There's
or
each-
if it's written that it automatically renews.
Right, and it's,
If both sides can't agree, it automatically renews at the same rate. That's what I'm trying to say. If I didn't say that correctly.
see, I had read that part
So in
of it.
other words, if me and him don't agree on it, we're gonna go back to the same rate we had this last time.
So if the state doesn't agree with the tribes, then it automatically renews by the way it's written.
Right.
Well, I just, that's
Correct.
something I just learned, and now it's, we are, wow. Wow. That's a heck of a deal they made.
That's the whole holding out. The tribes will not negotiate.
They don't have to.
Well, unless the state agrees that the compact automatically renews if there's no mutual agreement. It's like what Dr. Newman
Well,
said.
unless the governor's gonna take that to the Supreme Court and say that's not right, that's what he's got to get thrown out. But my understanding is it
Well, that's-
renews automatically unless
That's
they
not
come to
right.
an agreement.
But you're saying that the amount of money
It's the
is the
same,
same
it's the same, they paid the
as it
same
was
20
50 years ago.
Maybe they don't have any more people going to the casinos now than they did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Have you been by Vacaville?
Just saying.
I've got an Indian friend I've known for years, and he says, you stole my land and I'm gonna take your money.
I believe that. I haven't been to many Oklahoma casinos, but I would stop at the one in Ruidoso. And I don't know what my ancestors did to the Apaches, but they're getting it even with me. Actually, well, at one time in my life, I bought cattle for Eastern Livestock, and we bought all the cattle off of their reservation, and the chief came out, we're loading trucks, and the chief said, yeah, he said, the Navajos, they make blankets, the Apaches, we make money. And they're doing quite well. You know, they own the racetrack at Ruidoso, they own that casino, they're doing quite well. But no, it's not right, and I cannot, well, yeah, I can, because Governor Henry's got a good job. I can't see why you would have it renew automatically if both sides disagree, because why would the tribes agree to increase what they're paying the state at any point? Ever.
Because is there a percentage in it or just a dollar amount?
No, it's a percentage of what comes in.
How
And I
can they
think,
say that it hasn't gone up?
Well, if you can't see their books, there's no way to prove what came in.
and you can't go look at their books, so you
You're
can't
just gonna have to
prove.
take their word for it, like we have to on so many other things.
Mhm.
And the cash, because we used to go pick up coffee for Rose Blanc down in the city, and we ran into a guy down there that had worked in a casino. And he was the one to deliver the money when people won big amounts. And he was off, and by the time he got there, the person that had won the $10,000 had already left. And they told him just to put it on the table. Just to put it on
And
the
he
table.
also said that he will never go up and make a casino because they are as underhanded as anything.
He said the cars that
And he
people
used to work
win,
for one.
they turn, a lot of times they're employees and they want to turn them back into the casino.
Interesting. I've never won anything.
I'm not one.
I mean, he was very
So,
adamant.
one of the things I'm trying to do is, right now, when you make money on a casino, you pay it back at the end of the year, you know? And I'd like to see it comes out right then. When you get the payment, you'd have to pay the taxes at that time. Boom, boom.
To the casino, would it ever make it out of the casino?
That's a good point, but
I mean, if they can't, I mean,
but how do we know how much you won or lost at a casino?
well, there should be if you won over a certain amount. You have, there
Right.
should be a law.
They do. I mean,
I've heard of people,
I think it's $1,100 if your winning's going $1,100, you have to fill out
Yeah, you're supposed to fill out a deal.
a
Yeah.
deal for it.
I don't know, it's
But
never
the
happened
bad
to
part
me.
about that is, you may win $1,100 and spent $3,000 to win it.
Right.
But the only record they've got is the $1,100 that you won.
Right now, currently, the state of Oklahoma is at 17,500 that you can have in losses and you can take off.
We just did something a couple years ago on that. We were able
Well, this year, they tried to expand it so that you could have this loss here, plus you could have also another 17,000 or
Was that what we did?
$7,500 or $10,000 on gambling losses, and you could write that off too. Which it didn't pass, thank goodness. But I'm just telling you what was out there.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I never win. There was another loss I could write down. I won't have to pay that.
No.
We should be able to, I mean, if you gotta pay the tax on what you win, you ought to be able to take your losses off.
Mhm.
But the fact that the state's getting the same amount that they did whenever, that should be an immediate campaign.
It should. It should.
I mean, because that would make no sense at all to anybody except Southeast Oklahoma. So,
Well, there's 3 times the number of casinos that there
At
was.
least.
They surely gotta be making more money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
It's been a bad year. Nobody's gambling.
So
Is
under
that why we
this,
just opened the new one up in North Tulsa?
Actually, it's actually proven in a recession that people gamble. When it's bad, they gamble.
so
And I can
under-
see that. I mean, if they look at it as their last hope to make some money.
well, the national media's been pushing for reassessment for 3 years.
under this compact, why can the tribes not be audited? Like, I would understand why we couldn't audit their finances as a whole because they're federally recognized. But is there no protected language in this compact? Did nobody think
Well,
of this?
evidently, it automatically renews even if you disagree with it, so they were pretty smart when they wrote that compact up.
So there's not a, wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of wilds.
Yeah, that's the only thing, you learn more miles up there.
My first year that I was elected in 2014, that's when they started putting the casino in Guyana. And Carl can attest to this, when you were a freshman, it took me 6 months to find a bathroom at the Capitol. I mean, you don't know what process.
I couldn't hold it that long.
And, my constituents, I'd have a town hall or an Eggs and Issues, and it would be packed with people mad about them putting the casino. And they were mad at me because I couldn't stop it. Now that I've been there for 5 years, I'm kind of going, wow, my constituents thought a lot of me. If they thought I could beat the Chainsaw Nation, they're the most powerful tribe in, if not the state of Oklahoma, in the country. And they thought a little freshman legislator from Felt, Oklahoma could beat them. They're very powerful, very powerful.
And they've got the majority of the legislators too.
And they
Think
did.
about the Indian tribe area, the majority of the legislators come from that area. So that's a factor too.
How did that ever get to where they could just go out and buy land and put it, that was not originally Indian land, and then put it into trust, and all at once it becomes Indian land?
So the way I understand it is Senator Inhofe ran that legislation federally. And it was the, what are they called? The Lost Shawnee, not the Lost Shawnee.
Oh, it's because of all those lost tribes that didn't have any land.
Right, so whenever they divided Oklahoma up into tribal land, the Shawnee was still kind of fighting them. This one section of Shawnee is it's not the Lost Shawnee.
No, I don't remember what tribe it is, but it's one of them.
But it's the Shawnee, but there's a term in front of it. Took off to Mexico. Well, now they've come back, and that's actually the tribe that put the casino in Guyana. All they have, their tribal land is 640 acres in Miami. That's their reservation for that whole tribe. And so Senator Inhofe ran legislation federally that said, if you're a tribe and this happened to you, you're able to buy land and then put it into a trust, annex it into your tribal land. So that was one of the big fights in Guyman, that they went and bought, I think it was 280 acres. That went off the tax rolls. There's no more ad valorem tax being paid on it. And that was one of the, that they can put it in trust and it's off the tax rolls. In an area of the state that we need the money. Any other questions?
I've got one.
Okay.
It's not really a question, but the tax commission has just sent out and decided that all sales tax, and maybe all taxes, I don't know, have to be filed electronically. Instead of, if they're not going to send out sales tax forms to the businesses anymore. And I know I can't be the only one whose business isn't set up electronically.
I have not heard of this. Have you, Carl?
I'm sorry.
Can you repeat that to Carl? Because I hadn't heard of this.
Well, the sales tax, the tax commission sent out this notice that as of January 1st, all sales taxes will have to be filed electronically. Instead of sending out the forms that they've sent out for years, that you fill out and send back to them. They want it all now electronically, of which I'm sure then they also won't pay through that way. I've always resisted putting any kind of financial information on the internet because I don't care what they say, it's not secure.
No, it's not. Is there an option, or is this?
It's an option, I think.
That doesn't say there's any option.
It says Oklahoma Tax Groups provides you with the ability to electronically file and pay reports associated with your tax accounts.
But it also says they will not send the forms out anymore. So they're not giving you that option. And that's kind of my complaint, is I think we should have had the option.
Well, is there, could you download them and print them off and then just fill them out and send them in? I mean, would that fit, would that work for you?
I haven't heard of that one.
No, because I don't really have a computer, so.
But you have to know how to run that computer. Me and that computer,
I totally understand. I'm the same way. I can kind of turn one on, and that's about it.
Sometimes the tax commission sites aren't very user-friendly.
I've filed, I've done Alva Monuments taxes for about 5 years now. And I have never done it this way because I've always done it electronically, but it's my understanding that you can use a coupon to direct a paper payment. But you file the return online, so you just fill in your boxes, click next, fill in the next boxes, click next, all that, and then you can use another form to mail your payment in to go with that tax return. That's my understanding.
You do what now?
There's another small form, they call it a coupon, that you can use to direct your payment to go along with the form that you file online. So if you've got a smartphone, you can file that tax return form online and then just send in your paper payment with that coupon. But you would have to call them to ask them what that coupon looks like.
I don't think they're going to do any of that. Because they're not going to supply any kind of paper, anything.
Have you got anybody to answer you on the phone?
I was going to call them. I thought that number was on here, but all there is a website. If you're not computer literate, there. I mean, you can't do that either. So
It is gives you the ability, but up here it does say they don't send you more forms.
But you should be able to print it off and send it in. Yeah. But they're not going to send it, you should have it. Huh.
But that's just not I mean, that's not the first time that they do the same thing. It always comes down to, well, this is gonna save the state money, but they don't ever consider what it costs the businesses.
Right.
The
Well,
individual.
so, like I said, I'm very fortunate that I have the wife that I have because she takes care of the computer stuff. I say, what did I do? Why is it not working? Fix it. If I'd be in trouble if I had to do that. Wow.
Is there someplace that you can, I mean, like, besides just going to somebody that you know that has a computer and maybe downloading the form, can you go to, like, does the Alva Public Library, can they
You should
help
be.
download a form for you?
You should be able to.
Well, you gotta have an email address, an active email account.
Do you have one of those?
You gotta have an email account to be better. Same time.
That's tough. Did you get his information, Carl?
Yep.
Troy, or Liz, do you file electronically all the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Once you get over the hump of doing it, takes 2 seconds, but it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and
Well,
new
like-
language.
Like Carl is on full electronic records, but we just file insurance and have recalls on it.
But it's-
We don't have everything on it.
But it's setting it up with your payroll, like payroll taxes, and filing that. They want, and it's easy, I mean, if you're gonna file that, it's easier just to file it and have it drafted out of your checking account. And then at the end of the quarter, the payroll tax, that, or whatever you do, it shows what you've paid. It can show,
He's talking about
what
that sales tax.
This is sales.
it should be, I mean, we don't have, we pay sales tax on the stuff that comes in. So we don't have the sales tax, but it should be the same.
So
I would think it'd be the same way.
the tax commission website says that should you owe taxes and they're not paying electronically, then you will need to mail your payment to the Oklahoma Tax Commission, along with the payment voucher form 511B. So that should just be a little short form that has,
Are they
your,
gonna supply it?
I think they're gonna want you to print it off their website or something like that.
But there's no computer.
But that's what I'm gonna check on, okay?
Would that be available?
I mean,
And that may be-
I can't be the only small
No.
individual business out here that's not all computerized and everything else.
Right.
You might check with the post office, because a lot of times they have some of this stuff for it.
this is what the form for request for you. And
Let me, I'll get my LA on it.
Yeah, there's gotta be, or go to the courthouse.
A lot of times the post office has tax forms.
You said you have Allen and Sam's?
Oh, I don't know.
What do you say? They're gonna have to give me some reasons.
What?
They'll find out. That's why I want to get his name.
Well, I'm not there every day, I only do the taxes now.
But yeah, I totally understand. They probably yell at me because I'm wasteful, but at the Capitol, I have them print off every bill. I don't read them. I want to hold it in my hand, and I want to be able to mark on the side of it. I'm old school. I like to hold something in my hand and read it. Besides my phone.
When you've done it one way for 45 years, all at once they want to change something.
So let me know. Okay. I think it should be an option.
Well,
I mean,
if people wanted to file, they did.
if not, we'll find out an
As far as
access
I
point.
know, they never inquired that whether or not that was a burden or not a burden or anything else, so. With all these times, it's all, like I said, it's always, if it saves the state money, it's great. If it too helps, it's expense.
Well, that's, yeah, but how much is it costing the state? Because how many people are going to, I'm not going to fly. And they're losing revenue coming in because they've made it harder for some business.
But they're gonna get it back because you're gonna get a penalty.
But then they've got to send investigators out, and I mean, when I first moved to the Senate, the pro tem asked me about the fraud with the ag sales tax credit. And I said, what fraud? What are you talking about? Because yeah, all the fraud that's going on with this ag sales tax credit. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? Well, he goes, you know, when someone's neighbor that's got the exemption card takes his neighbor's card down and buys a lawnmower and or does this or that. And I said, you know, does that happen? Yeah, that happens. But the state is going to spend $100 bills to get a dime back. It's not that prevalent.
And it's a county that you know everybody, so.
Right, and it's not prevalent. Like I said, we'd spend $100 bills trying to get a dime back in what the supposed fraud and
Well, the bigger fraud on that is when the guy goes to buy the washing machine for his house and has nothing at all to do with.
well, I'm sure he washes his clothes that he wore on the farm in that washing machine.
Will you run off the washing machine? Farm?
I just bought
I don't
one
think
and
so.
I didn't get.
I don't think.
I can't even. I went in and bought gloves in Boise City at the hardware store, and they charged me tax. And I said, why are you charging me tax? And the guy he goes, well, how do I know that you're just not out digging in your garden? I'm like, well, garden? I'm going to build fence. This is for the farm. There's no. We've got to charge sales tax. So after that experience, and when they said, well, the fraud, I'm like, no, there's no fraud. It's not.
Then they require you to produce your exemption card and sign it, and that takes all the liability off of them.
Yep. But no, it's.
See, I have that.
I'm Googling.
I have that because I'll have people come in to buy, say, fruit trees. And they say, well, this is farm use.
Safer.
And I'm like, I don't think they're going to buy 2 fruit trees.
That's being much more. I think you can get.
Oh, it's a windbreak. Oh, it's a sun. It's a shade.
Or, or whatever. But it don't matter to me. I don't get the sales tax anyway.
Right.
If they'll produce their card and they sign it, I just say, well, if it's ever questioned, you may
It's on them, yeah.
they may lose your card forever. So it's up to you. I don't think they'll buy the story that 2 fruit trees is an orchard.
Well, and with technology, today I bought a pickup a couple years ago, and I went to tag it and put a farm tag on it, and the tag agent goes, well, no, you can't put a farm tag on it. I'm like, well, why not? Well, you don't have a farm exempt number. I said, yeah, I do. Because, oh, well, it's expired. Well, she knew in her office when I was trying to tag it that my card was expired, so then I had to walk down and get another card. But with technology, they know whether you have a card or not. I mean, it's there. Are there any more questions?
Education.
Education.
So what, are there any education bills that you are specifically looking at for the upcoming session?
So probably the one that's on the top of my head is teacher retirement, the COLA. And you know, the House sent that over to the Senate last year. Well, in statute, we have to run an actuary. That should be done So that would be voted on this year, is the COLA bill.
So what kind of a percentage of increase would we be looking at?
I can't tell you that off the top of my head. If you would call my office, we can get that information to you. What did the House number? What was the increase?
That was 4%, wasn't it?
4%? That sounds right. 4%.
Do you think that it will probably stay there, or do you think that number will be decreased by the time it makes it through the legislature?
If the actuary proves out to be 4% to be all right, in other words, not deplete the fund just to get it to the cost of living, I think it'll pass.
Yeah, it'll pass, but it all depends on what the actuary says, and it's can we afford it?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't, since the House passed it, that's why I'm saying, we voted on it, they didn't vote on it. You didn't vote on it, did you? Yeah, they didn't vote. I think it'll pass.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're just concerned that back in around 2000, I believe it was, or was it 2009? I can't remember.
05, 06.
04 or 05. Anyway, teacher retirement, all the retirement systems were defunct. You guys have been kicking in $300 million a year to build it back up. Because what was happening is the people that were in control at that time, it come election time, says, all the retired teachers, yeah, we want a cost of living increase on our retirement. Sure, here you go. And they kept pulling it out without seeing what it was going to do to the fund. And it was defunct. It was not solvent.
In 2005, 2006, don't quote me on the year, but I think it was estimated like in 2025, there'd be no money left in the teacher retirement. It was going to be gone. And so that's when we started building that back up. And I think right now it's 70% solvent. 76% solvent. The police fire is at 110%. And actually, I had a question today in Guyman about an increase on retirement for firefighters. And it's probably going to be all lumped together, but we'll probably give an increase to firefighters. And I'm sure we are, because they're 110% funded. But
I think all the retirements had to go through the actuary, didn't they? Yeah.
Which is a good thing. I mean, we're spending your money. It's not the state's money. It's your money, and we need to double check and make sure we're not going to get in a jam. And that's the one thing on the expanding Medicaid thing. I'm worried about our rural hospitals. Scared to death for them. But I don't want to do something that's going to put us in a jam 5 years, 10 years, and if the U.S. government, the federal government pulls that money back, I don't think they'll do it for 10 years. I think it will be gone, but I think in 10 years they start pulling this money back. I'm not going to be in office. I'll be termed out. What do I care? Well, I care because I'm looking out 20 years from now, or 30 years, or 50 years, 100 years on everything that I do. How's this going to affect Oklahoma 50 years from now? I know what's happening today, but what is going to come down the road? And I don't want to stick the taxpayers in a jam 50 years from now.
But wasn't the casino supposed to help?
So
some of the education also?
What happened is that casinos, whenever that legislation was approved, there was no supplant language in the bill, which means schools are getting the money from the casinos that they're supposed to be getting, but that money was pulled from other places that the schools were getting funding from. And so basically it didn't add anything to what schools were getting. Does that make sense?
The other thing, you had politicians that oversold those programs. We had the same thing with liquor by the drink, the lottery,
horse racing.
I mean, you had politicians out there saying, yeah, we need this. We're going to send it to education. And I know the story on the lottery because when I first got elected, when I was knocking doors, people said, well, what happened to the lottery money? I thought that was supposed to fix education. Well, when I got down there, I asked. And what had happened was when they were running the lottery, the governor at the time went out and said, oh, this is going to bring in $300 million, and that's going to fix education. It's going to be $300 million. And his staff told him, no, it's only going to bring in about $60 million. So he goes back out there and goes, it's going to bring in $150 million. It's going to help education. It only brings in about $60 million. So they oversell these programs saying it's the end-all, be-all, this is going to fix it. When in reality, it doesn't bring in as much money as the politicians is telling you that it's going to do. They inflate it. But it's better than nothing. But when you set the expectations out there that this is going to fix it, I'm always going to be straight with you guys. I'm not. I was going to use the term my EA told me I could never use. So I'm trying to find another term. I'm never going to blow smoke, and I'll tell you why. Because if I tell you, well, I'm going to go do this, and this is how it's going to happen, and in 2 months it doesn't happen, you're going to go, well, Casey lied to me. I'd just soon tell you the truth and say, look, this is how I see it going down, and you may be mad at me, but you know that I'm telling you the truth. And at the end of the day, that's all I have is my word. And if it's not worth anything, I'm not worth anything.
And I foresee in the next near future that you'll hear recreational marijuana and they'll say that'll fix education.
Well, and
if you vote for recreational marijuana, it'll fix education. We'll get that money in there.
And it's even on the medical marijuana, when they were pushing it, they said, well, you know, look at all the taxes it's going to bring in. Look at all the taxes it's going to bring in. Well, so they pass it. And when those committees were meeting at the Capitol on how we regulate it and how we're going to tax it, then they come out and say, oh, you can't tax it. You're just taxing the poor people. And then they switched their stories. And it's just best to be honest and be upfront. And when my life got easy at the Capitol was whenever it dawned on me the worst thing that can happen to me. The worst thing that can happen to me is you guys decide to go a different direction and send me home. That's the worst. I could go home and run cows. And with the cow market right now, that may not be so good. But anyway, so why do I want to spend things and just be your typical politician telling you what you want to hear? Just be honest with you. I sleep better at night, and I look myself in the mirror, and I did the best I can do.
This is off the subject, it's not with you all. But periodically I send our senators on both parties, different states and all. And I says if the lobbyists are so sold on their program, and you're going to use my money, then you, the senator, or whoever votes for it, and the lobbyists, they pay 55% of it. Then I consider paying the rest.
Public-private partnership.
Well, if something's so great,
right, you
pay for a part of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you're doing business, if something's good, people's got to pay for it. You know, they never have responded.
That's, you know, it's lobbyists gets a bad rap, and then there's some bad lobbyists out there. Mm-hmm. I hope I'm speaking for you, Carl. Actually, I just told somebody today, whenever I term out, I'm going to feel like I can get a PhD in everything, because we are having to vote and look into every subject from A to Z, from pig farms to retirement to education to boll weevils to fracking to the oil business. And how I use lobbyists is as information sources. So for every issue that we have at the Capitol, you have a lobbyist that's for it and you have a lobbyist that's against it. And they both come to my office and they say, well, you need to be voting for this because this is what it's going to do and this and that. And then 10 minutes later, I have a lobbyist that comes in and goes, you need to vote against it because it's bad and it's going to do this, this, and this. And I weigh that out, that information out, and I decide how is that going to affect my district? What's it going to do to my people?
As long as you think of them as being an advertisement, you know that they're trying to sway you.
Well,
yeah. Because that's what I say, if the lobbyists, both sides thinks it's a darn good or bad, you pay half of it. You wouldn't have very many of them down there pushing so hard. Because when they take it out of their pocket.
They have to be pretty sold on it.
That's right.
Has to be pretty good.
Anyway, they never responded to me. So if somebody comes looking for me and they ask you where I live, you don't know me. That's your safe, for your safety.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what do you have on Hillary?
I tell you, but when I send stuff out, I send it to both parties in Washington. I don't, I've been around too long.
Well, you know, it's the people in Washington, they have their own way of doing things, and Trump wasn't wrong when he called it a swamp.
I call it a sewer.
That's
what I said.
You know, you've heard the deal, we need term limits and kick them all out. Well, if you're going to do that, you need to get their staffers out. Because what happens is you can have a guy gets elected and he goes and he is a good guy wanting to do the right thing, and you send him to Washington. Well, he has to hire staffers, and you know, and this is coming from being new at the Capitol. Like I said a while ago, it took me 6 months to find the bathroom. You know, there's a lot of moving parts, and so you're depending on your staff to say, okay, this is how it works. Well, what happens? He gets there, he's brand new, he's wanting to clean it up, and his staffer shows up and goes, you know, this is how we do things. You go here, then you do this, and all of a sudden, after a few years, he falls down the same rut as everybody else because he's being advised bad. If you clean it out, you gotta clean it out.
Because I worked for the government for 28 years. Mm-hmm. And I knew some of the guys in Washington. And there was one there that he worked for like EPA, and he had a grade 11 or something like that, but over in defense or somewhere else, they had a higher grade, and a friend of his got him over there, and that guy didn't even know which end of the gun to shoot. That's stupid.
It is a brother-in-law deal.
Brother-in-law, it's a kiss up. Pardon my French.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
That's right, and I don't agree with it.
I don't either.
Well, that's probably why you can't get much done when you call the government. It takes a lot. You get 5 people trying to do one person's job.
That's right. And I feel like they need to put more of this stuff back into the state. Let the state handle it. Because them guys up there couldn't even change a flat tire.
Well, and you can even take it down to the state level. How does people in Washington, D.C. know what's going on in Oklahoma? And boots on the ground, how they send the federal money out there to the state of Oklahoma. How do they know what's going on in Oklahoma? Now we have our Lucas and Inhofe and Langford, but they don't. I mean, they're closer to the problem, but they don't know what's going on in the ground. And the same way on the state level, those people in Oklahoma City, they don't know what's going on in Alva. I mean, what I tell them, but the closer. That's why I am such a strong advocate for small local government, because you at the county courthouse know what's going on in this county. And so when I call you and say, hey, what's going on in this county? I'm depending on, because you're the closest government official to the problem, and I trust your opinion and what's going on. If I didn't do that, and I have to say, I don't get many phone calls from Washington asking what's going on in northwest Oklahoma. I think our services would be better. And I can say, well, you know, our hospitals are hurting, we're worried about our hospitals, our education, we've got problems there. This is what we need. But they try to take a 30,000-foot view on how to fix these problems when they need to be down there on the ground seeing what's actually wrong.
I don't think they really care. They're worried more about their little paycheck coming in.
It's power. They're more concerned about power and that next job.
Like they say, power, money, and greed corrupts totally. And that's what I think of Washington is, corrupt totally.
The richest people in the country live in the counties that surround Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
They go where the money's at. If you want to make a lot of money, you go where the money's at.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I think it's Alexandria, Virginia, is where the richest people in the country live. And it's just around Washington, D.C.
Hmm. Well, thank God I'm out here in just a plain old country boy.
It's nice. It's nice. You couldn't give me that. When I turn off I-40, so I go to Gary and come up, and when I turn off I-40, I can start breathing.
You've been watching that commercial.
Which one is that?
When this guy got some breathing, he could breathe good, and then he went in there and his son just pooped in his pants. How true that is.
I have one last question about education. Do you foresee any new funding for support staff raises?
So last year in that $1,200 raise, did that not go to support staff?
And one of the main reasons I asked, I'm a student at Northeastern State University for Library, Media, and Information Technology. I interviewed for a position here in Alva, and I was offered $17,000 a year for it because it is a support staff position in our district. Because we're only each district is only required to have one certified librarian, and any other librarians at other sites can
Really?
be. Yes. So we have 3 librarians in district making about $17,000 a year for a master's level position. I turned, I had to turn that down because there's no way I could do that. So I stayed in the classroom. I'm teaching at the middle school here, and I don't understand how people who can work so hard, specifically, like, I have paras in my classroom that do absolutely everything I do except plan the lessons and grade the papers. And they work so phenomenally hard, and they're making the amount of money that nobody could survive on.
Well, when I was on the school board at Felt, we had a part-time librarian. We shared them with Keys and Boise City, and I wanted to think that Felt's portion was $17,000, and we were paying a third of it.
Probably, if he or
Yeah,
she
she
was
had
the
like
only
that,
librarian.
and she had a master's, and so you have to pay for the education.
Right. So if they were the only librarian in district, in any of the districts, they would that minimum on the state salary schedule would have to be paid. But we have one certified librarian, Candy Almgren, in district, and
In the Alva School District?
And the other 3 librarians are doing the same exact job she is doing and making $17,000 a year.
And what does she make?
It would, I don't know exactly what she makes. I would have to look it up, but it depends obviously on your years of experience and your education. So, but I guarantee you it's more than, like, I make twice that with a bachelor's degree. And
As a teacher.
As a teacher. But, and my paraprofessionals, they spend their entire day following kids around who are struggling, who need the extra support, who need the extra time and care and attention. And honestly, I think it's probably a more stressful job than I have.
Oh, I imagine, yeah.
I don't disagree that we don't need to pay our paraprofessionals more, but our emphasis in the last few years has been to make sure we got the teachers there first, so that we could educate and then work on that from there. But again, you got to have the money to do it, and that's the kicker that I see. We can keep you know.
Well, when we added money to the classroom, and maybe I was thinking we had, some of that money we added to the classroom was supposed to have gone for paras, but that may be up to the board.
2,500, wasn't it? Did I come up with that number off the top of my head, 2,500, is that right or not?
Or was that just state employee raises?
Maybe that was state employee raises, that's right.
But we added this last year,
The schools were given the option whether or not to provide that raise to support staff.
So
You
that's,
said that was given to the option?
yeah, so we gave it to the classroom, so it was up to the board how they utilized the extra money for the classroom. And that may be what I'm thinking is what we did last year was we added money to the classroom, and it's up to the school board to decide how to spend that, where they want to spend that.
And like I said, I'm grateful to the legislature for, the raise that I got last year, but here at Alva, I literally could not do my job without my paras. I have one class that has 9 kids on IEPs, and every single one of them needs individual attention. And it's my largest class. I could not do that without them. And I feel like they deserve a lot more than they're getting.
So what is that per hour? Because are they by the hour?
Yeah, I think they broke it down. Well, it's by the hour, but they're allotted so many hours per week. So
they're part-time.
Even if they work more hours, then they still only get that set amount. And I think it's either 35 or 40 hours a week. And so they're paid like a salaried employee, just like I am. But
so it's not by the hour.
Okay, so it breaks down to, like, they're given their salary, and they're told, okay, so it's this much per hour, this many hours per week, but we're paying you this. So if you go over that time, you're still not getting paid more. Does that make sense?
See, it felt when I was there, we paid our paras by the hour. They were on an hourly rate. But that'd be, the school board handles that. That's kind of their purview. But no, I get what you're saying.
I mean, people could go work at McDonald's or, somewhere low stress. They hang up their hat at the end of the day, they're done, they can forget about work and make that same amount of money. But they're taking care of our kids.
And that's always been the same argument on the teachers. As long as our colleges are kicking out 1,000 kindergarten teachers a year, why should we give them a raise? You know what I mean? That was the
are
argument.
They doing that?
Well,
I've heard.
I'm not saying 1,000, but that's been the argument. As long as people take those jobs, they're not going to increase the salary.
All the universities in the state of Oklahoma graduated less than 300.
I was thinking that the numbers, education majors, the numbers are dwindling.
Only 30% of those stayed in state.
And right here, Northwestern was the top education school in the state, isn't it? Do you have someone from Northwestern?
That's where I graduated from. It is. And Northwestern graduates almost as many students in education per year as Oklahoma State.
Right. This is the premier education school in the state right here.
And Alva is very blessed that a lot of the students that graduate from the College of Education here stay here because they have roots here, and we graduated them out of the high school. But the rest of the state or other communities in Northwest Oklahoma, that's not the case.
No, and it's hard to get people to move out here. I don't get it, but yeah, it's when I was on the school board, it felt We had two different occasions. The first occasion, someone called to set up an interview. They said, oh, by the way, how far is it to Walmart? I said, 80 miles. Click. Hung up. Another one we hired, and they were moving out there, and they pulled into Feld, and they just turned around and left. They didn't want to live that far out there. I don't think they realized how far it is out there. And it's just an issue that we have in Northwest Oklahoma is getting teachers and really any professionals. I had a meeting in Guyman today. They're having a hard time getting a dentist to move out there, and it's just, we don't have the entertainment value, I guess. I love it, but we don't have the mall just down the street, or the opera, or we don't have those things that they think they want, and it's just hard to recruit them to come out here.
They don't have to grow up there and then
You do. We've got to raise our own.
That's how it is here.
We have to raise our own, and whether it's our doctors, whether it's our teachers, any of our professionals, we have to raise our own. I'll look in to see what we're doing in education. I'm not on that committee, so I haven't seen anything. Have you heard of?
I haven't heard anything new on that, but I mean, again, sometimes it's the school board that decides some of those decisions going on down as we give the money to the schools where it goes.
Maybe we could try to earmark that money more for specific things rather than just, okay, here's this money, spend it how you wish.
We went to earmarking the money before I came in there, and then they said, well, we can't spend it on this because it's earmarked for that. And so we took away those earmarks, and then they still say, well, we don't get money for this because you didn't give us the earmark for it. So I don't know. It's kind of a catch-22. But yeah, I think they should get a deserving wage. Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
I've got one other comment. Of course, I'm always trying to defend the citizen against the state or the feds or whatever against the government. But my comment is, if the state, or in this case, district attorneys, file charges on you for some reason, whatever, even if you defend and are found innocent, you can't get your money back that it cost you to defend yourself. So they kind of got you over a barrel, because it's going to settle in some way, instead, although you know you're innocent, because it's going to cost you so much money to prove it.
Right.
That doesn't seem right to me.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Now, if lawyers work for $5 an hour, that would make a lot of difference, but they don't.
We could run that bill, couldn't we, Keith?
Oh, how many lawyers do we have in here?
None.
Okay, good.
That's why I said that.
I really don't like lawyers.
Amen.
I have paid them way too much money, and wasn't happy with, and I still had to pay. We lost, and I still had to pay. And I hadn't thought about the scenario you just put up, but I think as far as lawsuits, I think the loser ought to pay the bill.
In this case, if the lawyer just attorneys that's filed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Defend somebody,
He loses.
they get
It's
found
the
guilty.
state. That's the loser. There should be the loser. They should
Would
have
take
to.
it back.
I mean,
pay legal
maybe it would
fees.
make him be a little more diligent on making sure he knows exactly what he's filing charges.
And I think as far as lawsuits, you don't have frivolous lawsuits. I think if the loser pays the legal fees, and I think, and as far as your DA scenario, your DA is going to make sure
So he needs to make more sure on what he's.
He's not
That
just
he's
filing
got.
frivolous charges.
Because basically, the state would basically bankrupt somebody if they wanted to.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I like that. I like that. Now, I won't do anything this year because I put last year I ran 60 bills. And I won't ever do that again. That's unmanageable.
Are you leaving?
Yes.
It's good visiting with you. Okay? But, so I'm getting to the point of all the bills that I'm gonna run this year, but I like that. Have the faith. I like that. And you wouldn't have them just filing frivolous charges.
Well, they might not be filing charges, just to try to prove that they are doing a job or need, that they're wanted or something. Could might make a little bit more effort to be convinced that they're going to get a conviction.
Right.
I just, you know,
So they'll
I've
make sure
run
they
into
have the
that here
evidence.
recently, and I just didn't think that was right.
No, they make sure they have the evidence.
About lawyers,